So, do you find racism worse than sexism? Or was it the combination that finally woke you up? Sorry, I'm just kind of stuck on the fact that you were completely fine knowing he irrationally hated half the globe. Anyway, try letting him talk. You can talk to him all you want, but that's usually not effective. Ask him about his ideas and why he has them. Sometimes, forcing someone to explain their ideas in detail helps them find the faults on their own. You're basically playing the why game. Also, if possible, exposure is the best remedy for this. If he has no friends or anyone in his life who isn't white and male, it may be hard to shake him from his misguided ideas. Story 1. Everyone is just trying to feel safe and loved. From your answers so far, it seems that he gets positive feedback for these views from his family and online forums. You might be the only person he knows who can give him an alternative perspective. Making him feel bad about himself for having those views is not going to work when everyone else in his life is making him feel good for them. Walking away from the friendship will just cement his opinion that people who don't share his opinions are unworthy. Ask questions. Lots of questions. Engage with him in a non-judgmental way. Racist points of view are inherently contradictory. Other races can't simultaneously be inferior and a threat. The stereotypes quickly break down when you actually look at individuals. You may be able to lead him to a place where at least he acknowledges the falsehoods, even if he has to keep endorsing them to maintain his family relations. Don't rise to the bait. Don't get mad. Don't judge. Stay calm and interested. Find out why he believes what he believes, and discover together how those beliefs are flawed. Story 2. Do you think you can get through to him? So try it once or twice. If not, end that friendship and make it clear that it is his views that were the reason. The worst thing you can do is to tolerate it and treat it as if it is just an opinion or a quirk he has. Do not normalize it. Story 3. You do not leave people. People leave you. He will continue to be this way if there are no consequences for him being this way. He has simply learned that being racist is fine. Why would he stop? He still has friends, people tolerate his jokes, some even laugh, so why should he change? Story 4. A buddy of mine in high school turned out to be a full-blown Holocaust-denying Nazi. All the jokes in high school seem much more sinister now. I've cut him completely out of my life after he went completely crazy about Jewish people at a house party a couple of years after high school, and most others that I know have done the same. I don't need to associate with him anymore. Story 5. Why are so many posts telling the original poster to ditch his best friend? Holy shit. Boys, what is this? For a sub filled with "I don't have any friends" comments, all of you are certainly showing why that is the case. To the original poster, United States, I guess? It's probably changing due to public debate having more and more openly racist parties involved. I'm guessing he now feels part of something. I've known a couple of guys like that. I told them they didn't hate minorities, but were just looking for a group that didn't condemn their tendency towards aggression, fighting, and external blame. We stayed friends. They grew out of it. One of them got a Thai girlfriend eventually. Pretty wholesome when I think about it, except for them indirectly teaching me most of the American History X soundtrack. Keep talking to your friend about it. Tell him you think his opinions are bad. Tell him you disagree. If he really hates people over their skin color and, surprise, those people aren't going anywhere, he is going to be angry and frustrated. A lot. If he is already socially awkward, that may make him even less likable for people around him, isolating him further. But even though he might be a bit of a bigot, he has at least one thing going for him. He has a friend who isn't a racist. A friend who can change his mind. It's not your quest or anything, but I do hope that you understand that if every non-racist stops talking to racists, they'll only have each other, and their beliefs will fester beyond recognition. Punching Nazis doesn't actually help. You being his non-discriminating friend will help him remember that he's more than a racist, and it may help him find some footing outside of right-wing platforms growing in popularity. Story 6. This is highly likely to get buried at this point, but I think you could use some information about off-ramping and de-radicalization techniques that have been the center of Christian Picciolini's work for at least 2 decades. He is a former leader of the Chicago area skinheads, as well as the Hammerskin Nation, and fronted a white power punk band in the early 1990s. He fought hard to become a former white supremacist and now fights against white supremacy. In Breaking Hate, he postulates that people who have their own traumas, potholes, stemming from adolescence and even younger, like all of us tend to have, such as being picked on in school, general loneliness and feelings of not belonging, or maybe having violent alcoholic parents, can be a spectrum. These individuals are looking to fill the deficits they have in their base needs of identity, community, and purpose. These individuals may latch onto hatred as a way to explain or fill in their potholes, and find the communities of hatred and bigotry to be a place where they can find their identity, community, and purpose. He uses the self-coined 7LS to stop their racist paths. This involves breaking someone's hate down and then building these people back up with the right tools to redirect them to filling their deficits with positive identity, community, and purpose. Check out his book, Breaking Hate. I can't recommend it enough for someone looking to actually take action to help save their friend from their own blind racist hatred. Story 7. I went through something similar just last month, actually. One of my best friends of 11 years kept expressing racist sentiments for about 3 years. I consistently challenged him on his opinions. He'd say things like, "There's no systemic oppression of black people. Segregation has nothing to do with the state of the black community today," or "Black people want to commit crime and run out on their families." Over a period of 3 years, I would present him with studies, quotes from politicians, things like North Carolina closing voting on Sundays to prevent the black population from voting, or the Lee Atwater interview. But he'd always respond with name-calling, circular logic, or questioning the validity of my sources, even though many were provided by the government. I stopped talking to him for a few months and really thought about the things he had said and what he continues to believe even when faced with the reality of the situation. I made a public Facebook post calling him out on it, which included a lot of the claims he had made and sources that contradicted them. He deleted his Facebook and blocked every one of our mutual friends who liked the post. Through another mutual friend, he essentially complained that it was unfair for me to reveal his views publicly and that he still stood by his stance. Now, the majority of our mutual friends think very little of him, also because we found out recently that he'd been cheating on his ex. Many have explicitly said to me they also think he's racist after seeing what happened. I'm only starting to realize now, after almost 3 years, how toxic of a person he was when I stepped back from our relationship. It's still something I think about daily as we were friends for 11 years, and it's only been a month. Story 8. I am from a small, predominantly white town in the Midwest. Lots of farmers and various other blue-collar trades. What I'm trying to say nicely is that it's full of racist rednecks. The issue you run into with these people who have racism embedded in so much of their lives is that when you try to call them on it or explain to them why racism is bad, you are dismissed for letting politics get in the way of a friendship. Much like lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and asexual rights, they see racism as a political issue, not a human rights issue. Not a hatred problem. I hate to say it, but unfortunately, your friend may never see it for what it is, and it's near impossible to change their mind. They'll have to come to that conclusion about their worldview on their own. But that rarely ever happens. I've been in similar shoes, and unfortunately, I just had to sever some ties. It was never my best friend, though. Sorry to hear it, original poster. Story 9. I can only share my personal experience, but maybe it will help you. In my early 20s, I was one of the edgy racists. I didn't actually hate black people because why would I? I had no reason to. But I still made racist comments around my friends and under my breath around black people. I had a black friend, and he was But guys, I have a black friend. See? But of course, I also commented often that he was just black on the outside. Well, my friends, my great friends, had had enough. They socially ostracized me for a year. No one wanted anything to do with me. But they were there for me when something finally clicked, and I realized that I wasn't cool or edgy, and things have been great since. Maybe your friend just needs something like this. Or maybe he needs an attitude adjustment. Looking back, I'm lucky I never caught one myself. Story 10. If you stop being his friend, you do more damage than good. To you, it is unfortunate. You lose a longtime friend. To them, it is the same. On top of that, there is no one there to guide them away from those negative views. Stay their friend, But when the topic comes up, do not call them an idiot, call them uninformed. It ends up being an education issue. There are some amazing YouTube videos about former racists and Ku Klux Klan members who got to meet and know black people better and rejected their bad roots. One person has converted hundreds or thousands by meeting them. Story 11. I had a friend of 20 years who showed little to no empathy for anything the entire time I knew him. I don't know if he is racist, but I wouldn't be terribly surprised. He was my best friend and, for a while, essentially my only friend. During a very depressing time in my life, when I was contemplating suicide daily, he abandoned me because he didn't want drama in his life. Several years later, I still resent him for it, but I'm better off without him, despite barely surviving my depression. The point is, no matter how long you've known someone, if they are a heartless person, then you're better off without them. Story 12. If you have opinions, share them. You don't change your mind if you're in an echo chamber. If you just nod and laugh it off, then he thinks he's right. Just remember, he thinks highly enough of you to share his bigotry, so he will think highly enough of you when you rebut or argue with him respectfully. What won't work is to tell the guy to shut up. That's racist. Story 13. I had a friend go down the misogynist road a while back. The rest of us challenged his beliefs when he would voice them, and we put some distance between us and him. He came around after a few months of that. Do you have other friends who will challenge his racism with you? Story 14. Had a friend who I was close with through junior and senior year of high school. When I went to college and temporarily moved back to town, he and I hung out almost every day. One day he said, "You know what disgusts me? Interracial relationships. But only the ones with a black man and white woman because I know she could do much better." I didn't say anything, but he saw my face and stopped talking about it right after his statement. I didn't talk about it with him more deeply, even though I wanted to because he was dating a Latino at the time, since that's the only person who was interested in him, as well as being Mexican-American myself. I just hung out with him for another hour that day and never talked to him again. Not saying it's the best idea, but sometimes it's better to cut them off than do anything at all, especially if you're not in the proper headspace to argue with them about something as simple as equal treatment for people. Story 15. Sometimes people's ideology changes or stays the same as they get older. You can grow out of a friendship. If he doesn't want to change and you can't handle it, then you should stop being friends. Story 16. All you can do is try to show him the situation from a different viewpoint. Sometimes things need to be put into full perspective for people to realize what is going on. Sometimes people do better with hard numbers and statistics. Then again, some people do not want to change, and until they want to improve themselves, there is nothing you can do to help them. Sometimes we have to end relationships because it is what is best for us. Toxicity will seep into every part of your life if you let it. It is okay to outgrow places and people. If you do end up having to cut the friendship, I would be completely upfront and honest with him and let him know it is strictly because of his racist views. Maybe it will take him losing a good friend to realize what he is doing, and maybe he can change later down the road. All you can do is look out for yourself and hope for the best. Story 17. I've had to just cut people out of my life like this. The older they are, the worse it gets, as they are so stubborn, and their view is the right view no matter how many times I tried. In the end, it's like a poison that eats away at you until you can't take it anymore, and I just had to leave them and the situation. Story 18. You stop being his friend. Back in my 20s, a guy in our group suddenly had a lot to say about Hispanic people. There were reasons he was turning very sour at life in general, but after a few sideways comments, he started making full-blown racist statements, and at that point, he stopped being included in our group plans. Story 19. My best friend and best man at my wedding revealed his racism when Barack Obama was running for office. He used the N-word casually and said a lot of nonsense. Took me by surprise since I had never heard him talk like that. He hung up the phone quickly when I said I didn't tolerate that kind of talk. I haven't talked to him since. After learning that's how he thinks, there was nothing left to say. Story 20. I had a friend like that. I appreciate the people that are saying to stick with him and try to be a good influence and all that, but I also understand the people suggesting you peace out. For me, it was just too much for my mental health. I stuck it out for many years, even through countless things he said and did that were horrid and mean. I thought eventually he would change. It just got to a point, as both a person of color and immigrant living in the southeastern United States, it was just too much. I was trying to move up in life, find a nice place to live, a nice woman, get an education, all that good stuff. And this guy was just dragging me down with his views and also being the opposite, sitting around doing nothing but also complaining about immigrants and minorities. Plus, when my grandma passed away, the guy said my grandma was the only person in my family he liked and he wouldn't have a problem gassing the rest of us in our sleep. I was blown away by that, and yeah, by you Nazi. Story 21. My dad seemed to be getting better and stopped being outwardly racist for a long time, so I thought he was getting over it and changing his views. Then we got to talking about the protests and his racist side began showing again, so I educated him on some of the recent police brutality that's gone on. He shut up pretty quickly. Then, about 20 minutes later, he decided to use the N-word for some stupid reason. My stepmother looked at my little sister and tried to tell her that it just means ignorant to downplay the word. So, I looked my little sister in the eyes and directly told her loud enough for everyone to hear. People who use the N-word are pieces of shit. There's no good excuse to be using that word. It caused an awkward silence, but everyone at my dad's house knows exactly where I stand on the subject.